Art has always been a passion of mine throughout my life. However, I had never imagined how important it would become to me as I grew older. My interest grew and fell from year to year, never staying constant because of my short attention span. The once passive interest I had in art skyrocketed during high school. It grew so much that it occupied my mind in a way that not much else ever did. It was my anchor, and I used it to express my thoughts and feelings in a way that I couldn't always verbally articulate. Art helped me through some of the most painful moments of my life, and I use art the same way even today, and I am so thankful for the joy and contentment it has brought into my life.
Hi, I'm a rabbit, and I live in a moon that is made of strawberry ice cream. The cloud here is made of cotton candy, and the cheese are lollipops. I have pink fur. Everything here is pink and tastes like berry too. If you live here with me, you will have a very sweet time with a really cool person, which is me. My job every day here is to wake up, eat berries, and paint the whole planet, making sure that everything is in pink. I want to make sure that every person can only have pinky, creamy, and happy times when they are here with me. But one day, there was a yellow dog that landed on my planet, out of nowhere. She breaks that pink balance that I always try to keep. She ran around with her not so clean footprint, and more importantly, she is making my place go dirty. Because of that, I had to follow her to clean up her yellowishness. I pick up her trash. I delete her footprint. I try to keep her sit still. However, it didn't work out. At the end, I had to use water to clean it up. But the point is, I let too much water out. So when I look back, the whole place is in black. Black tree, black land, black clouds, and me. Yes, you get it right. This place is not originally in pink. This moon is not made by strawberry ice cream. It is a dead planet made by dirt. And I'm not a pink rabbit. I'm a black dog that's upset with making things look happy. Hi, I'm Milo, and I'm the pink rabbit, or the black dog, however you want to call me. And lately, I just figured out that I have trouble telling sad stories, not because I don't like sad things, but because I don't want to look sad. I like telling lighthearted stories, writing lighthearted music, and making lightheartedly pretty things, because it makes my heart less heavy. You know they say fake it until you make it, but sometimes you got to wash it all off, because black maybe is pretty too, in its own way.
Dissociation is an experience unlike any other, and I don't mean that in a good way. A measly 200 to 400 words does not scratch the surface of months or even years of dissociation. It is not a simple feeling or emotion, it is an entire state of being, like you are trapped between two worlds but not present in either. It is like being a bacteria on a slide of glass under a microscope. A bright light and watchful eye observes you as you squirm and struggle, not even fully aware of what is going on or what you are doing. Dissociation is like being caught in a horror movie. You don't know any lines. You don't know what is real or fake. You feel like people and cameras are tracking you, and none of them can be trusted. A feeling of dread keeps you awake, yet you are paralyzed constantly in a sleep-like state. People talk to you, but you can't understand what they're saying. It's like being underwater. You know you have to complete tasks and take care of responsibilities, but you can't even remember what they are or how to do them. People probably say things to you about how weird you're acting or how you keep falling behind, but honestly, you can't even remember if those conversations actually happened. Dissociation is like your body running on autopilot without your permission. There's glass walls inside your mind, but they are foggy. You can take a guess at what's happening outside, but there's no way to be sure. You feel nothing. But you still somehow feel bored and sad and anxious and paranoid. After a while, you just can't seem to remember anything. But that's the point of dissociation, right? That your mind is so traumatized by whatever event or surroundings or people or ideas that it just shuts off in an effort to preserve itself. It prays for just a moment's reprieve from the suffering. The days melt into each other, but then they evaporate completely. Months of my life are gone. There is no lesson to be learned. There is no honor to be fought for in this battle. Eventually, you either wake up or you die. Even when you wake up, it isn't a joyous experience. You probably don't even notice that you woke up at first. You might not even fully awaken until a few weeks later. You just feel a little more like yourself, and a little less scared of the world around you.
Maybe only 1 in 1,000 people can relate to this story. Or 1 in 13. Or 9 in 100. The internet really can't make up its mind as to how common it is. But I can assure you that my suffering was one of a kind. After a long, hard Saturday of doing absolutely nothing, I came home to find my 2 roommates sewing a kilt. They were going to a Renaissance fair with a friend on Sunday. Now, this is the part where I would say, "Oh, woe is me, I spent Sunday alone in the hospital when I should have been out meeting fairies and throwing axes with my pals." While that would have been a good appeal to emotion, I didn't actually plan on joining them. I had stuff due on Monday that I hadn't even looked at, and I was running out of excuses. Enter gas pains. I tried to distract myself by drawing. Then they evolved into chest burster of the abdomen pains. It felt like a demon baby was trying to claw its way out of me. I was in so much agony that I couldn't even call Campo myself, and a roommate had to do it for me. In typical Licking Memorial ER fashion, I was asked some questions, then left alone, literally screaming, until someone came to give me pain reliever. Hours later, I was pleasantly greeted by a doctor telling me that my appendix had to be removed. The time was 8 a.m. and I hadn't slept all night. I was overjoyed. The surgery took 40 minutes, but the next 24 hours felt like years. They plopped me in a recovery room and left me alone with my crippling boredom. I had an IV in the crease of my right elbow, so I couldn't draw. In fact, I couldn't really do anything. The slightest movement would cause the pumping machine to beep obnoxiously until a nurse arrived to fix it. This one in particular lacked volume controls. Lucky me! On top of that, my bladder constantly felt like it was going to burst, but nothing would come out. Over the next 24 hours, I continuously moved between the bed and the bathroom with the IV machine screaming at me every time I got up, and sometimes when I wasn't even moving at all. At 10:30 p.m., my mother arrived from San Francisco. She accompanied me for the remaining hours of my torture. We could only sleep in blocks of 30 minutes or less until the IV pump woke us up again, and at no sooner than 5 a.m. did my salvation finally come. The nurses moved the IV to my upper left arm, an infinitely more stable location. I slept for a solid 5 hours after that, and at 12:40 p.m. that day, I was discharged from the worst experience of my life. What did I learn? Well, nothing. There was absolutely nothing I could have done to avoid getting appendicitis. At least it won't happen again.
Once, a 7-year-old me snatched a hungry crawdad from the creek. To feed my crawdad, I captured an oversized grasshopper from my front yard. As it writhed between my fingers, I plucked off each of the insect's 6 legs, for ease of consumption, no less. Instead, what I had done was willingly and meticulously participated in the torture of a living being. I realized this, and my mom says I bawled for 30 minutes. As a tribute to that grasshopper, I vowed never to kill bugs again, except for bloodsuckers and except for flies. In terms of cuteness, flies are among the most underappreciated bugs. Their eyes twinkle when I look into them, they rub their little hands together when they find food, and they have a longing curiosity to know what I'm up to every hour of the day. They also harbor diseases, excrete waste uncontrollably, and demand my attention when it's least convenient. Preschoolers who traded intelligence and lifespan for raw agility. I envy their charisma and their acrobatic grace, but they all must go. A fly nonchalantly swoops to perch atop my chunk of watermelon. Oh, sorry, did I mean to land here? Of course, it did. And then it poops. It violates every aspect of civilization. No child, no grasshopper would have done this. Swatter in hand, I rear my arm back and take aim. Images of that poor grasshopper frantically convulsing about the garage floor flood my mind, and the fly dies instantly.
This weekend, on my way home from the supermarket with my friends, I got a deep sense of how different people can be. My friend was swiping his phone in the car, and he suddenly yelled, "Oh my god, there is a girl in our school who bought a limited edition sports car worth $400,000 by using the money from her father." That girl is about the same age as me, and she's also an international student from China studying at OSU. She bought a fancy car, but I was even comparing the prices on the shelves in the supermarket. I couldn't even imagine that if I tell my dad that I want to spend $400,000 to buy a car, he would absolutely say no and think I am crazy. I began to complain about the injustice of fate and wonder why she's so different but also so similar to me. When the car drove to the next traffic light intersection, I saw a homeless man holding a sign begging for money in the cold wind. We were at the same place, but I was sitting in the warm car, and he was standing outside in such a cold weather. The homeless man might not be able to afford a meal, but I was able to buy a lot of food I liked in the supermarket. He may also wonder why he's so different, but also so similar to me. It's even crazier to think about the difference between the poor homeless man and the rich girl. People and people are so different from each other. But what I can do to reduce the gap between people? I think if I can have $400,000, I will not choose to buy a luxury car. I will choose to build a primary school in a poor area, because education is the most effective way to narrow down the gap between people.
I'll never forget my summer 2 years ago. I was a counselor in training at my local sleepaway camp on Orcas Island in Washington. Between the 2 weeks I was there, we spent the weekend camping at Twin Lakes. On Saturday morning, we had the opportunity to hike up Mount Constitution, but to do so, we had to wake up at 4 in the morning. I wondered when this opportunity would come again, and realized it probably wouldn't, so I decided to go. There were 5 of us in total, 4 counselors in training and 1 of our directors. The hike was excruciating, 7 miles and 1,500 feet in elevation that we had to cover in 2 hours in order to make it to the top to see the sunrise. We didn't have time for breaks, so if you stopped to drink from your water bottle, you had to run up the mountain to catch up, which would only make you even more tired. There were many times when it seemed like we had made it to the top, only for there to be so much more. The higher we got, the colder it became, which started to be quite nice as we were all sweating so much. When we finally got to the top, it was light out and we thought we surely missed the sunrise. However, once we walked up the stone tower atop the mountain, we realized that we couldn't yet see the sun. There was a thick layer of clouds just over the horizon, so while the sun had technically risen and it was light out, it was still behind those clouds, so we essentially didn't miss anything. We watched in awe as the sun slowly rose from behind the clouds. The cold breeze combating the summer heat was so accomplishing. Watching the sunrise, knowing that we achieved our goal, made the grueling climb completely worth it. I would never hike up Mount Constitution again, but I'm so glad that I did it once.
I take off my shoes and socks. Moss fills the space between my toes. I have hiked for 10 miles. Well, maybe it has been closer to 7, but the numerous hills, rocks, and craggy valleys have made each mile feel a bit longer. Jersey Island, Ireland. Population 6. 2 square miles of rugged, wild land. Only accessible by cable car. My mom tells me that this is where my family originated. We have passed several graveyards of my ancestors. I feel removed from this history. How can I, a 16-year-old born in Ohio, have ties to this ancient land? This all feels too foreign for me to digest. I'm surrounded by family on this hike. Irish cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. Besides a couple brief phone calls, this is maybe the 4th time that I have been around these people. Their thick Irish lilt makes it hard for me to understand their words. I find myself doing a lot of smiling and nodding, always one step behind. Something happened when we hit the moss. My cousin called this meadow the fairyland. I smile. In all honesty, I never stopped believing in fairies. There is something mystical about this island, and if there were any place which fairies would reside in, it would be this stretch of moss. I soak in the unapologetic beauty around me. My cousins and I grab each other's hands. There is a strange, unspoken bond between us. The hike continues, and we eventually reach the peak of the mountain. The wind bites my cheeks, and the salt from the Atlantic finds its way into my hair. We stand by ancient ruins, and I outstretch my arms. The crisp wind pushes against my back. I feel as if I could fly off this cliff, right into the clouds. I imagine another 16-year-old girl, a distant ancestor of mine, doing the same, with her arms outstretched. Parts of myself that I couldn't place before, I find in this island. I recognize my temper in the raging ocean, my intensity in the unrelenting wind, and my independence in the remote, wild land. There is an indescribable familial bond, a bond that transcends words and surpasses geographical boundaries. Sometimes, places you've never been to and people you've never met can provide a recognizable comfort.
I anxiously headed to the local children's hospital for my first time observing a general pediatric surgery in the operating room. Dr. Hari was going to be performing 2 surgeries that morning. First, a short laparoscopic hernia repair, and then a longer stoma reversal surgery. As I watched the team set up the apparatus in preparation for the hernia repair, I found myself becoming slightly lightheaded. The surgery had begun. Dr. Hari started by making a small, inch-long incision below the infant's navel to insert the laparoscope. This minuscule cut through the infant's skin pushed me over the edge. I blacked out. I was ushered out to the lounge. How humiliating. Apparently, I'm too wimpy to watch surgeries, let alone be a surgeon. Discouraged, I decided that I was not going to be able to handle observing the second surgery. After the hernia repair was complete, Dr. Hari told me that he wanted me to come with him to talk to the parents of the infant with the hernia and inform them of the successful outcome. As we approached the parents, I could see the mother crying as the father held her anxiously. Dr. Hari assured them that the procedure had gone smoothly and that their son was now in recovery. The parents' simultaneous sigh was filled with relief and joy. Looking at the utter happiness that Dr. Hari's words had brought to these people made me realize the significance of his job. I had just witnessed the most rewarding part of being a pediatric surgeon, the satisfaction of informing a family that their child was going to be fine. At this moment, I knew I was going to observe the entirety of the stoma reversal surgery and continue to pursue a career in pediatric surgery. Watching that interaction between the parents and Dr. Hari had shown me the significance of his work and reinvigorated my passions towards its pursuit. Later that morning, I entered the operating room with confidence and observed the entirety of the complex 4-hour stoma reversal procedure. I have since done observation in the operating room a multitude of times, experiencing longer, more intensive surgeries along the way. Each time, I am guided by the inspiration that Dr. Hari's interaction with that child's parents gave me.
So last summer vacation, I often take the subway to the company for an internship. As soon as the door in subway was opened, the crowd rushed in quickly. The young person ran up quickly, the middle-aged person also squeezed into the door. The children took advantage of their small body type to seize the gap and get in. Luckily, I was squeezed to the inside and found an empty seat.
I hurried to sit down. The subway drove really fast and soon reached the next stop. When the door opened, many people walked over immediately, including an aged uncrutched who was standing next to my seat. I noticed him and wanted to give my seat to that aged, but when I was hesitant for a while. It's hard for me to find a seat in a crowd. Besides, there's so many people sitting on the subway. Why they don't give up their seats? But when I saw the aged clutching the pole next to my chair, his body swaying, he was about to fall. I can't bear to see this thing and going to stand up. However, when I stand up and ask him to take this seat, the subway arrived at the next station and the aged got off slowly. My heart couldn't calm down for moments. But after that, when I encounter this situation again, I won't hesitate anymore.
I cannot remember the first time I ever flew on a plane holding my parents' hand. They told me that I was like a hype creature, terribly annoyed but also impossible to get rid of. I didn't remember such a thing, so I sat in my chair, ignoring the chuckles of my parents. No, I'm not that small anymore. I am a grown-up already, I said, and my eyes rolled in displeasure. Definitely, I can fly alone. You will see. That day at the airport, there was me, my father, my mother. We took one single picture, smiling larger than ever. My parents by my side, eyes focused on me, hands grabbed tight, posture stayed in stillness. They rubbed my cheek and smiled again at me while I was too eager to move into my imaginary future. So I neglected the last gesture. I could have looked back at the security door, the last door to say goodbye, but I didn't. The plane took off in a few minutes. The first wave of fear hit, and I suddenly gained consciousness of only me amidst the rowdy surrounding full of people. The chair became too confined, while the air was so damn stifling. Next to me was a middle-aged lady with her son constantly babbling. His hands clung to his mom tight, his eye fixed to her face. I want to be a child again, flying with my parents through the air, but who else would be there for me except for the concerned eye and the thought, damn, is she nuts? So I sat silently next to the window, head tilted to the sky outside. I wonder if I say goodbye then, would my parents receive my message? I bet they would. So I said, hands on my heart, eyes closed, lips sealed, goodbye.
March 2020. What a time! Almost everyone was gone for spring break. Only a handful of international students remained in a sort of limbo. We can't leave because if classes restart and there's no flights back, we'll have to withdraw. We can't really stay because everyone is gone and half of our stuff is already in boxes. So we just sat in our rooms, alone, waiting. I got the message that in-person classes were cancelled until the end of the year, late at night on Monday. I told my mom before I went to bed, and we ordered me a suitcase that should arrive on Wednesday, just in time for me to leave on Thursday. The phone rang at 7 a.m. on the dot. My mom was hysterical. She told me they were closing the borders and my flight was booked for tomorrow. The only thing I registered was that 1, I have around 24 hours to box the rest of my stuff, and 2, I have nowhere to put my luggage. Thus began Operation Suitcase. I knew I had to get to Walmart, but how do I do that without a mask? I looked around my room. Shirt? Too small. Sweater? Too itchy. Pillowcase. Yes! Pillowcase! But I need a filter. A sanitary pad will do just that. And to Walmart I went. Petty pillowcase around my face, hunting for a suitcase. If only my story would end there, but alas, life isn't that kind. I landed home, and though I did have a mask this time, as far as my mother knew, I was bringing the plague with me. And who in their right mind would let a plague-ridden person ride in the same car with them? So there I was, driving myself from the airport in the pouring rain. Great condition for a new driver who hasn't touched the wheel in 5 months. But at least I got my suitcase. And at least this time, when I was sitting alone in a room for a week, it was my childhood bedroom, and not my lonely dorm. So, now what?
This happened a long time ago when I was around 9 years old. Me and my family went on a road trip to the small town between the mountains in the northwestern Vietnam area. One day, during the trip, we went up to the mountain to have dinner with my parents' friend. There were some kids there with us who me and my brother got along with quite well. Me and the kids had this bet, or more like just a silly game we came up with. We would fight over this room in the hotel with this really nice armchair, and whoever sits in the chair first wins. So, during dinner, me and my brother thought, since everyone's here, we would get the chair easy if we just came back to the hotel by ourselves, and no one would find out. And so we did. We went alone down the mountain, through the market, across the street, which was a big deal for a 9-year-old, and asked the receptionist for the key to the room all by ourselves. Me and my brother, we were so proud, we would race to the room and called our parents to brag about what we had just accomplished. We were shocked to hear our raging father on the other end of the line, raging, shouting at us for doing such idiotic act. It turned out that Saipa, which was the town, had actually one of the worst cases of kidnapping and human trafficking during that time. And the market me and my brother went through was one of those dangerous areas where the kidnappers would lurk. And Mom was crying, shouting, throwing everything at us. And at one point, people around us got jumped in to stop my mom from beating me up so bad. I can't describe how I felt at the time seeing Mom like that. All I could sum up was lingering anxiety. My parents, for a split moment there, thought they had lost their sons, and what terrible feeling that must have been. I guess that haunts me till this day, how I almost got kidnapped and got a whole different life.
In my hometown, there is a park about 5 minutes away from my house. My mothers took me there quite often as a child, and as I grew older, I was tasked with taking my brothers and the dog there so they could all run off their energy. This park is known by every person in town, and even newcomers are quickly informed of its existence. Why? Because of the cheese. In a flat section of wood chips stands a giant square slab of concrete, painted yellow, and covered with holes big enough for a toddler to crawl through. This Swiss sculpture has stood strong against hurricanes, teenagers, and heaps of small children. I myself remember sitting atop it with at least 4 or 5 other friends, kicking our heels against the cheese and feeling like the kings of the world. We were fiercely protective of it. Sadly, the cheese was recently taken down. I came home one semester and discovered it had been whisked away. To this day, that place is still known as Cheese Park and remains the most well-known location in that tiny suburb. May the cheese live on in fond memory forever.